What if everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you turned out to be a lie? In a world where trust is fragile and betrayal is the deadliest weapon, Ethan Hawthorne, a high school teacher, found himself on a journey that would test not only his loyalty but his very will to survive. When Ethan discovers the shocking truth about his wife's betrayal, his world is turned upside down. But what starts as a personal heartbreak quickly spirals into something far more dangerous, a conspiracy that threatens everything he holds dear. Now, Ethan must uncover the hidden secrets of those he once trusted, navigating a web of lies, corruption, and power, where every ally may be an enemy in disguise. But in a game where the stakes are life and death, the truth might be the deadliest weapon of all. This is just the beginning. The truth has a price, and Ethan will pay it. What will Ethan do when the only thing left to trust is his own survival? The story follows Matthew Hayes, a high school history teacher, as he uncovers the shocking betrayal of his wife, Caroline, who is not only having an affair but also plotting against him. As Matthew digs deeper, he uncovers a vast financial conspiracy involving his wife and her accomplice, Dr. Harrison Whitaker. With the help of his friends and a few unexpected allies, Matthew must navigate through lies and deceit to expose the truth, save his life, and rebuild his future. This tale explores themes of betrayal, personal justice, and redemption. Matthew Hayes, a quiet and dedicated high school teacher, lives a seemingly perfect life with his wife, Caroline. One evening, Caroline leaves for a business trip, promising to return in a few days. Matthew decides to surprise her by redecorating their bedroom, hoping to rekindle the romance in their relationship. While cleaning out a closet to make space for the new furniture, Matthew stumbles upon a hidden shoebox filled with photographs, receipts, and mysterious documents. Among the papers are snapshots of Caroline with a man Matthew doesn't recognize, Dr. Harrison Whitaker, a respected local surgeon. Upon further inspection, Matthew finds a note detailing a plan to harm him in order to seize control of his assets. The evidence sends Matthew into a tailspin of disbelief and confusion. Devastated but determined to get to the truth, Matthew confides in his best friend, Ryan Keller, who suggests that they take matters into their own hands. Matthew hires Veronica Sloan, a seasoned private investigator with a reputation for getting results. Veronica soon uncovers more shocking details. Caroline and Dr. Whitaker are not only having an affair, but they are also involved in embezzling funds from a local charity organization they both have ties to. The conspiracy runs deeper than Matthew ever imagined. With Veronica's help, Matthew tracks Caroline and Harrison's movements. They discover a secret bank account and transactions that suggest Caroline has been siphoning money from the charity for years, using Harrison as a front. Caroline's betrayal is not just personal, it's financial and criminal. Matthew is left questioning how well he truly knew his wife. Matthew, now fully aware of the danger he's in, begins to gather more concrete evidence. He secretly records conversations, collects financial statements, and even follows Caroline and Harrison to a meeting. Meanwhile, Ryan and Samantha, a lawyer who specializes in criminal law, help Matthew formulate a legal plan to expose the couple without putting himself in further danger. The tension escalates as Matthew realizes he may be next in line to be silenced. The night of the confrontation arrives. Matthew, armed with all the evidence he needs, faces Caroline in their home. His heart is heavy with anger and sadness as he confronts her about the affair, the financial fraud, and the plans she had to ruin him. Caroline's initial response is cold indifference, but as Matthew reveals more details, her confidence begins to crack. She denies nothing, but instead, she challenges him, telling him he should have seen it coming. As Matthew calls the authorities, Caroline's demeanor shifts, revealing just how deep her betrayal truly runs. Caroline and Harrison are arrested, and the trial begins. The courtroom is filled with tension as Matthew testifies, recounting the pain of discovering his wife's infidelity in her criminal activities. The evidence is overwhelming, but Caroline and Harrison fight tooth and nail to maintain their innocence. The case becomes a media spectacle, with Matthew constantly in the spotlight. Though he has exposed the truth, the emotional toll of the journey weighs heavily on him. The verdict comes in. Caroline and Harrison are both found guilty of multiple charges, including fraud and conspiracy to harm Matthew. As they are led away in handcuffs, Matthew feels a mix of relief and sorrow. The woman he once loved is now gone from his life, and the life they built together is shattered. But while the legal battle is over, Matthew's emotional healing has only just begun. He moves on with the help of Ryan and Samantha, who has become more than just a legal advisor. She's now a close friend. The trauma of betrayal lingers, and Matthew struggles with the question of whether he'll ever fully trust again. Matthew starts a support group for victims of financial scams and betrayal, using his own experience as a platform to help others. He becomes more involved in the community, finding solace in helping those who have suffered the way he did. Samantha, now his close confidant, encourages him to open his heart again, but Matthew isn't sure he's ready for another relationship. The future remains uncertain, but Matthew is determined to find peace and closure on his own terms. As the months pass, Matthew continues to struggle with the emotional scars left by Caroline's betrayal. Though he has sought legal retribution, the personal hurt runs deep. His heart, once filled with trust and love for Caroline, is now cautious and guarded. The idea of rebuilding his life seems daunting, and while the support group he started for victims of financial crimes is successful, it feels like a temporary balm for wounds that won't fully heal. Despite the pain, Matthew finds solace in small, meaningful moments. He reconnects with his old friends, spending more time with Ryan, who has been a rock during the darkest times. Matthew also grows closer to Samantha, who, though supportive, remains a distant figure in his heart. He's not ready to open up to her fully, unsure if he can trust again. But Samantha remains patient, understanding that Matthew's recovery is a journey, not a destination. One day, as Matthew walks through the park after a therapy session, he encounters someone from his past, Nora, an old college friend who had been a fleeting presence in his life. Nora, now a private investigator in her own right, had been following the story of Caroline's betrayal closely and had been helping some of the other victims of fraud. She and Matthew had shared a brief, romantic connection years ago before life had led them on different paths. Their chance meeting sparks an instant recognition, and though Matthew is cautious, he finds himself drawn to her once again. Nora offers to help Matthew by looking into a strange lead she's received regarding Caroline's motives for the betrayal. Caroline's financial actions had far-reaching consequences, and there may be someone else behind her decisions, a person who has yet to be identified. Matthew is torn, the wounds of his past aren't fully healed, and he fears the re-emergence of the woman who shattered his life. But curiosity gets the better of him, and he agrees to let Nora investigate further. Nora's investigation uncovers a disturbing pattern. Caroline wasn't the mastermind behind the financial crimes after all, she had been manipulated by someone much more powerful, someone who had orchestrated the entire scheme from the shadows. Nora's research reveals a businessman named Elias Dorian, a notorious figure in the local corporate world, whose connections to Dr. Whitaker go far beyond the initial affair. Elias had been using Caroline and Harrison as pawns in a much larger scheme to take control of a multi-million-dollar medical research project. Caroline had been promised a stake in the project if she played along, and Harrison, ever eager for personal gain, had agreed to use his position as a respected doctor to cover up the fraud. But neither Caroline nor Harrison knew that Elias had a far more sinister agenda, to ruin Matthew, destroy his reputation, and take everything he had. Matthew is rocked by this revelation. Caroline had never acted out of pure malice, she had been a victim of Elias's manipulation. Yet, the pain of the betrayal still stings, and Matthew must now come to terms with the idea that his life was upended not just by the people he loved, but by a far-reaching conspiracy. With this new information, Matthew realizes that he is not finished with this fight. Elias Dorian is still out there, and if he hasn't been brought to justice yet, it's only a matter of time before he targets someone else. Matthew knows that exposing Elias and his involvement in the criminal enterprise will be just as dangerous as it is necessary. He confides in Ryan and Samantha about what he's learned, and the three of them work together, cautiously planning their next moves. They know that confronting Elias directly could put their lives in jeopardy, but Matthew's resolve is stronger than ever. He wants not just justice, but redemption, for himself, for Caroline, and for anyone else who may fall victim to Elias's manipulation. Meanwhile, Nora continues to dig deeper, gathering more evidence to tie Elias to the illicit operations. As they close in on him, Matthew begins to feel the weight of their mission. The closer they get, the more dangerous the game becomes. Matthew knows he cannot let his guard down. The threat is real, and Elias Dorian is not a man to be underestimated. Just as Matthew feels the walls closing in around him, an unexpected ally emerges, Veronica Sloan, the private investigator who had helped him with the first case against Caroline and Harrison. Veronica, now more familiar with Matthew's story in his personal struggle, reaches out to offer her assistance once again. Veronica reveals that she had been investigating Elias Dorian for some time, having suspected his involvement in several other high-profile financial scandals. She had gathered significant evidence linking him to organized crime and corruption in the medical field, but she had been unable to get close enough to expose him. Veronica's knowledge and resources are invaluable to Matthew and his team, and with her help, they begin to connect the dots between Elias's criminal activities and the devastation he has caused in their lives. Together, they hatch a plan to infiltrate Elias's operations, collect irrefutable evidence, and expose him to the authorities. But Matthew knows that this will not be a simple task. Elias is dangerous, and his reach is vast. Every step forward feels like a step into the unknown. As Matthew, Ryan, Samantha, Nora, and Veronica close in on Elias, the stakes rise higher. They are no longer just dealing with financial fraud, they are facing a criminal mastermind with a reputation for ruthlessness. In their efforts to gather concrete evidence, they find themselves entangled in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Elias has eyes everywhere, and it becomes clear that any one of them could be the next target. The story builds to a heart-pounding climax as Matthew and his allies make their final move. They manage to secure a meeting with Elias, under the guise of a business deal that will expose his entire operation. But things don't go according to plan. Betrayal and danger lurk at every turn, and the confrontation with Elias threatens to spiral out of control. In a tense standoff, Matthew faces Elias one-on-one, armed with the knowledge of his crimes and the resolve to stop him once and for all. But just as Matthew thinks he's won, an unexpected twist shakes him to his core. Someone from within his circle may have been playing both sides all along. As the story concludes, the battle against Elias Dorian reaches a boiling point. The final outcome is uncertain, with the authorities closing in on Elias, but a new, shocking revelation comes to light. One of Matthew's closest allies may have been working with Elias all along. Matthew is left questioning the loyalty of those around him, wondering if he can ever trust anyone again. The story ends on an ambiguous note, with Matthew standing at a crossroads, uncertain about his future, but resolute in his determination to uncover the truth and protect the people he cares about. As Matthew processes the shocking revelation about one of his closest allies possibly being compromised, his world seems to fracture once again. The person he once thought of as a friend, someone who had supported him through his darkest days, may have been feeding information to Elias Dorian, the mastermind behind all of his suffering. Matthew can't let this go. His mind races, going over every moment in which he felt they were on the same team. His suspicions point toward Veronica Sloan. She had been instrumental in helping him gather evidence, but had she been playing both sides? It's difficult to believe, especially since Veronica had always been straightforward with him. But the deeper Matthew delves into the events leading up to their most recent confrontation with Elias, the more he begins to doubt. Ryan, ever loyal, insists that they can't turn their backs on Veronica without concrete proof. But the seeds of doubt have been planted in Matthew's mind, and he finds himself struggling to trust even those closest to him. Matthew knows he needs to act quickly, but he also understands that rushing into conclusions could mean losing everything. He decides to investigate Veronica on his own. But this is tricky. Veronica is a professional, and Matthew is no investigator. Still, he begins to dig into her past, looking for anything that could suggest she had ties to Elias or had ever crossed ethical lines. As Matthew tracks Veronica's movements, he begins to uncover an unsettling pattern. Veronica had previously been associated with a private investigative firm that had links to underworld activities. There were vague references to cases where clients had mysteriously disappeared or been silenced. Could she have been part of a larger scheme all along? While Matthew tries to make sense of these discoveries, he's also forced to confront the growing emotional weight of his journey. Every step feels like walking on a tightrope, unsure of who to trust. His desire for justice is unwavering, but the cost of it is becoming unbearable. While Matthew's mind battles with suspicions surrounding Veronica, a bombshell revelation comes from an unexpected source, Nora. Having become increasingly close to Matthew over the past months, Nora discloses her own findings, things she's kept hidden to protect Matthew. She admits that she, too, had a history with Elias Dorian. Though their relationship was brief, Nora had once worked for Elias years ago, serving as a consultant for a major corporate merger. It turns out Elias had a hand in many business ventures that had left a trail of destruction, including the hospital fraud scheme that Caroline had unknowingly become entangled in. Nora's ties to Elias were not as simple as she had initially let on, and she has been grappling with the guilt of her past involvement ever since. Matthew is stunned, unsure of how to process this new information. But Nora assures him that she never intended to harm him. Her personal moral code had evolved since working with Elias, and she claims to be on his side now, helping him bring Elias to justice. Still, Matthew cannot shake the unease of not knowing who is truly on his side. Nora's confession is both a relief and a burden. He wants to believe in her, but the scars of betrayal are too fresh, and the threat of Elias looms large. In a strange twist of fate, Veronica catches wind of Matthew's suspicions and decides to confront him before he takes any further steps. Their meeting is tense, with Matthew unable to hide his distrust. But Veronica, knowing how crucial it is to maintain their fragile alliance, insists that she's still on his side. She admits to the past connections Matthew had uncovered, but she argues that they are no longer relevant. She's no longer involved in those operations. "I've cut ties with that world, Matthew," Veronica says, her voice filled with a mix of frustration and sincerity. "I helped you because I want to see justice done. Don't mistake my past for who I am now." Matthew, still torn, listens carefully. Part of him wants to believe her. The other part wonders if it's just another layer of manipulation. But with Elias still out there, they can't afford to turn on each other now. Reluctantly, Matthew decides to give Veronica the benefit of the doubt, for the time being. As Matthew reluctantly trusts Veronica again, the team, now including Ryan, Samantha, Nora, and Veronica, moves forward with a new plan. The group begins to close in on Elias's operations. They discover a hidden network of shell companies, all linked to the medical research project that Caroline and Harrison had been roped into. The more they dig, the more they realize just how vast and intricate Elias's empire is. He has his hands in nearly every aspect of local business and medicine, manipulating people and situations to get what he wants. Elias's web of lies stretches far beyond what they initially believed. At every turn, Matthew's team uncovers more corruption, more hidden agendas. It's not just a financial scam, it's a criminal enterprise designed to control people, their wealth, and their lives. But Elias's ultimate goal is still unclear. What is he really after? Matthew's desire for answers grows more urgent. He knows that the only way to stop Elias is to expose every piece of the puzzle, no matter how dangerous it becomes. But as the pieces start to fit together, Matthew realizes that his fight isn't just about exposing a corrupt businessman, it's about reclaiming control over his own life, his own future. As the group finalizes their plan to expose Elias once and for all, Matthew takes a moment to reflect on how far he's come. He has gone from being a man betrayed and broken by the people closest to him to someone who is willing to fight back with everything he has. The road ahead is still uncertain, and the stakes are higher than ever. But Matthew no longer feels helpless. He's become a force in his own right. Just as the team prepares to make their move against Elias, another complication arises. A mysterious figure from Matthew's past, someone he thought was long gone, resurfaces, offering new information that could be pivotal in taking down Elias. This figure, whose identity remains shrouded in secrecy, holds a key piece of the puzzle that could be the game changer. Matthew finds himself at a crossroads once again. Who can he trust? And is this new ally truly on his side, or do they have their own agenda? As the final confrontation draws near, Matthew must decide whether to embrace this new opportunity or risk losing everything. Just as Matthew and his team prepare for their final assault on Elias Dorian's empire, a surprising and unsettling event shakes them to their core. A visitor arrives at Matthew's home late one night, an unexpected face from his past. It's Audrey, an old college professor who had mentored Matthew during his early career. Audrey had once been a figure of great influence in Matthew's life, offering guidance when he needed it most. But she vanished from his life after a sudden fallout, and Matthew hadn't heard from her in years. Audrey's return is cryptic, and she has a message for Matthew: Elias Dorian is not the end of this story. The truth you're after is far deeper than you think. You're only scratching the surface. Her eyes are filled with a mix of fear and urgency. She insists that Matthew is in greater danger than he realizes and that some of the people he trusts the most are involved in the conspiracy, including some he hasn't even met yet. Matthew is stunned. He doesn't know what to make of Audrey's warning. Is she here to help, or is this another form of manipulation? Still, he knows he can't afford to ignore her words. He listens carefully as Audrey reveals that Elias has a hidden agenda, one that involves not just financial control, but a more powerful, covert operation with political and criminal ties that span decades. Matthew is left reeling, questioning everything he thought he knew about the situation. Audrey insists that the only way to truly understand Elias's reach is to get access to a secretive meeting he's scheduled in the coming days. But there's a catch: the people behind Elias's network will stop at nothing to ensure their secrets remain hidden, and Matthew's involvement will put him directly in their sights. With Audrey's warning fresh in his mind, Matthew decides to take the risk and infiltrate the meeting. He informs Ryan, Veronica, and Nora, and they prepare for the operation, knowing the stakes have never been higher. This is not just about exposing Elias anymore, it's about uncovering the entire network of corruption that runs through the city and beyond. The night of the meeting arrives, and the team uses every resource at their disposal to blend in undetected. They manage to secure positions close to the meeting room, where Elias is expected to meet with several powerful figures from the political, corporate, and criminal worlds. As the meeting unfolds, Matthew is struck by the names of the people involved: influential politicians, well-known business leaders, and a few individuals Matthew recognizes as former associates of his wife, Caroline. The conversation begins innocuously enough, with discussions about the future of medical technology and the growing financial power of their collective interests. But as the hours pass, it becomes clear that the real agenda is far darker. Elias reveals that his operation isn't just about making money, it's about consolidating control over entire sectors of the country's infrastructure, from healthcare to energy to technology. He speaks of using political leverage to push through policies that will further enrich their circle, all while keeping their true motives hidden from the public. Matthew is horrified to learn that Caroline's role was just a small cog in a much larger machine. She had been manipulated by people far more powerful than herself, and in the end, her affair with Harrison Whitaker was merely a distraction. The real scheme, Matthew realizes, was about securing political influence and creating a network of control that could reshape society itself. As the meeting progresses, Matthew is caught off guard by a shocking turn of events. Veronica, who had been acting as their inside contact, is suddenly called out by one of the figures in the room. An influential senator, known for his connections to Elias, turns to Veronica with a knowing smile. "You've been a loyal player in this game, Veronica," the senator says. "But you knew the rules when you signed up." Matthew's heart sinks. Veronica, the woman he had come to trust, had been working with Elias all along. She had been feeding information to the very people Matthew was trying to expose. The betrayal stings deeper than anything Matthew could have imagined. Veronica had always seemed like an ally, someone who had helped him navigate the most dangerous aspects of his fight for justice. But now, it was clear she was playing her own game. Veronica stands in silence, her face betraying no emotion, before she turns and walks out of the meeting room without another word. Matthew is left in shock, unable to comprehend what just happened. Ryan, watching from a distance, whispers, "We can't trust anyone anymore, can we?" But before Matthew can process the betrayal fully, things take a darker turn. A group of armed men enters the room, signaling that the meeting has been compromised. The group quickly disperses, and chaos erupts as the authorities, tipped off about the illegal gathering, begin to raid the building. In the midst of the confusion, Matthew and his team make their escape, but Veronica is nowhere to be found. Back at their safe house, Matthew is left grappling with the realization that the fight for justice is far from over. Veronica's betrayal stings, but it also forces Matthew to rethink his next move. Can he still trust anyone in this war, or is the truth so deeply buried that it will take even more sacrifices to uncover? In the midst of the chaos, Matthew receives another message, a letter, handwritten, with no return address. It's from Caroline. "Matthew, I know you hate me, and I can never undo what I've done. But there's more you need to know. I never wanted any of this. I was forced into it. And I've been trying to make it right. The truth is far worse than you think. If you want answers, you need to go to Dorian's estate. There's a safe in his private office. It has everything. The people who can't be named are the ones pulling the strings. Be careful, they'll stop at nothing." The letter ends abruptly, leaving Matthew with more questions than answers. Can he trust Caroline now, after everything she's done? Has she truly turned against Elias and the network, or is this just another trap? With no time to lose, Matthew decides to act. He and Ryan, joined by Nora, make plans to infiltrate Elias Dorian's estate and retrieve the files that Caroline mentioned. Their mission is clear: they need to expose the network for what it truly is, no matter the cost. As they make their way to the estate, Matthew's mind races. What will they find in that safe? What truths will be revealed? And most importantly, who will survive this dangerous game? When they finally arrive, the estate is eerily quiet, as if expecting them. The deeper they go, the more it feels like they're walking into a trap. They find the safe hidden in Dorian's private office, and with great effort, they manage to break the code and open it. What they uncover shocks them beyond belief: a detailed map of a global conspiracy involving high-profile figures, political leaders, and corporate giants, all leading back to a single powerful organization. Before they can fully process what they've found, the door slams shut behind them. They are not alone. The door slams shut behind Matthew, Ryan, and Nora as they stand frozen in Dorian's private office. The air is thick with tension, and before they can react, several figures step out from the shadows. Among them is Veronica, her expression unreadable. Standing beside her is a tall man Matthew recognizes immediately, Elias Dorian himself. "You've been very persistent, Matthew," Elias says with a mocking smile. "But all this time, you've only been running in circles. You never understood the true depth of the game you've been caught in." Matthew's heart races as he takes in the situation. Veronica's betrayal stings in a way he didn't expect. But now is not the time to dwell on it. The files they found in the safe are the key to exposing everything, and that's what matters now. "You don't have to do this, Veronica," Matthew says, his voice filled with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You've been with me this whole time, helping me. Why? Veronica's gaze is cold, detached. Because it was never about you, Matthew. This was never personal. Elias offered something I couldn't refuse. She pauses, her eyes glinting with something deeper. The power, the wealth, the control. It's intoxicating. Elias steps forward, his calm demeanor belying the danger he exudes. Veronica made the right choice. You, on the other hand, Matthew, have been a nuisance. But I can't deny your persistence. You've uncovered a fraction of the truth, but the real power lies with us. It always has. Matthew feels the weight of their words, and for a brief moment, he questions if he's been chasing ghosts. But then he remembers what's at stake, not just his own life, but the lives of everyone who could be hurt by Elias's twisted network. I'm not going anywhere, Matthew says, his voice firm. I will bring you down, no matter the cost. As the tension mounts, Nora steps forward, her face a mask of determination. She pulls a small device from her pocket, a recorder. I've been recording everything from the moment I entered this estate, she says. I know about your plans, Elias. Everything. Elias narrows his eyes. So, you think that small piece of technology will stop me? Maybe not stop you, Nora responds coolly. But it will ensure that no matter what happens next, the truth will be out there. You can and #39T control the narrative anymore. Matthew's heart races. If the recorder works, it could be the final blow against Elias's empire. The plan had always been to expose the truth, to bring down the network piece by piece, but now it seems like the pieces are falling into place. But Elias is not the type to go down without a fight. With a sudden motion, he signals to his men. The room erupts into chaos as armed guards rush forward, weapons drawn. Matthew, Nora, and Ryan barely have time to react before they're surrounded. Don't do this, Elias, Matthew warns. You're too far gone. This doesn't have to end like this. Elias's smile is chilling. It already has, Matthew. You just don't realize it yet. In the midst of the escalating confrontation, a sharp sound pierces the air, a gunshot. But it's not from Elias's men. The shot came from an unexpected direction, from the doorway. The heavy door is kicked open, and standing in the entrance is none other than Caroline, holding a firearm aimed directly at Elias. Step away from him, Elias, Caroline says, her voice cold but resolute. This ends now. The room goes silent, all eyes turning to her. Elias, caught off guard, momentarily freezes. The look of betrayal and disbelief in his eyes is unmistakable, but Caroline doesn't falter. She's changed. Her voice is no longer filled with the fear and confusion that once defined her. There is power in her now, power that she's finally taking control of. Caroline, Matthew breathes, unable to fully grasp what's happening. I didn't know how deep it all went, Caroline says, her eyes locked on Elias. But I'm done. Done with the lies. Done with the manipulation. I've seen what this man is capable of. And I'm not going to let him hurt you or anyone else. Elias glares at her, his arrogance cracking for the first time. You think you can take me down, Caroline? You have no idea what you're up against. But Caroline doesn't hesitate. She steps forward, her grip on the gun steady. I don't need to take you down. You've already lost. As the standoff continues, Caroline's presence becomes a beacon of strength. The guards hesitate, unsure of whether to follow Elias's orders. Matthew sees an opening, a chance to end this once and for all. He grabs Ryan and Nora, signaling them to act. Together, they rush toward the control panel in the corner of the room, triggering the security system to disable the building's surveillance and communications. With the security down, they manage to subdue Elias's men, leaving the mastermind himself cornered. Elias, seeing his empire crumbling, turns to Caroline. "You can't stop this," he sneers. "You think the law will protect you? You think they'll believe your story?" Caroline, standing firm, lowers the gun. "I don't need your approval, Elias. The truth is out there now. And no one can stop it." With the recorder Nora had hidden, the authorities are alerted. A full investigation into Elias Dorian and his network is launched. The truth begins to unravel, the corruption, the fraud, and the political power plays all come to light. The system that Elias had so carefully built is dismantled piece by piece, and those who were complicit begin to fall. In the weeks that follow, Matthew and his team watch as Elias is arrested, charged with a range of crimes, from financial fraud to conspiracy, bribery, and even murder. His influence, once so far-reaching, begins to evaporate as the truth spreads. For Matthew, the road to recovery is long. The scars left by the betrayal of those he loved, Caroline, Veronica, still sting. But he knows he's made the right choice. The truth is the only thing that can heal the wounds. Caroline, having played a pivotal role in bringing down Elias, faces her own reckoning. Though Matthew is still unsure if they can rebuild their relationship, he sees the change in her. She has fought for redemption, and though the road is uncertain, they both acknowledge the healing process has begun. Ryan and Nora, who had stood by him throughout the darkest times, continue to support him as they all move forward, each finding their own path. As for Samantha, Matthew realizes he has found someone who stands by him, not out of obligation, but because she believes in him. Together, they begin a new chapter of their lives, one that is still filled with uncertainty but also with hope. As the dust settles, Matthew stands by the window of his apartment, looking out over the city. The sun is setting, casting a warm golden light over the skyline. He reflects on everything that has happened, the betrayal, the lies, the pain. But he also sees the new life ahead of him. The battle for justice has been won, but his journey of self-discovery and healing is just beginning. He no longer feels the weight of the past as he once did. The scars are there, but they no longer define him. He's stronger now, not because he defeated Elias, but because he refused to give up on what was right. And as the sun sets on this chapter of his life, Matthew knows that, for the first time in a long time, he can look to the future with hope. The battle for truth has only just begun. Ethan Hawthorne has uncovered a web of lies, but in a world where betrayal runs deep, who can he trust now? As the pieces fall into place, the ultimate question remains. Will Ethan's quest for justice cost him everything? What do you think will happen next in Ethan's journey? Drop your thoughts and predictions in the comments below, we'd love to hear your theories. If you enjoyed the story and want to see how it all unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss an update. You won't want to miss what's coming next.